today. Today, I want to talk about suicide, and I know that I think I've talked about this topic before, um, but I have no problem talking about it because I've experienced some of the feelings that people have had with suicidal thoughts, and so I'm comfortable talking about suicide and death, and I'm kind of that kind of person that is comfortable talking about just about anything. So here I am. I'm okay with talking about this topic. That's a it's kind of sort of a, oh my gosh, we don't want to talk about it and admit to it, and then for fear of someone committing us to a psych ward or something. So here's where I want to just open it up and see if we could provide some comfort and some hope and some practical tools to help with the things that lead to suicidal thoughts. And I was just thinking about the time when years ago, it was about 20 years ago when everything on the outside was looking good in my life. I was making lots of money and I had two beautiful daughters and a beautiful wife. And we were married for 14 years. And that some things started to happen that started to kind of poke at me and wake me up a little bit. And I started to realize that I was distracting myself. And when I couldn't distract myself, kind of the shit hit the fan. And it wasn't something that I could really explain to my wife, and I didn't want to explain to anyone because I couldn't really explain it to myself, much less anyone. So when I went to a marriage therapist, I just was sitting there dumbfounded, and I couldn't really put it into words about how I was feeling. And now I would have said something like, it feels like my soul is shrinking from my body. It feels like my soul is being sucked out of my body. And I don't have any like valid reason why I should be upset or sad or depressed or suicidal. But there it was. And I remember Jim Carrey talking about this. He says that, he would get depression just by being himself, just by waking up in the morning going, here I am. Okay, I'm Jim Carrey. This is what I got to do. And I think that was part of it with me. That I didn't have any yeah, there was trauma in my childhood. And yeah, I was in a relationship that wasn't the highest relationship that I was starting to get pointers to, but it was also, okay, this is my life. I thought it would be better than this. I thought, is this it? I thought it would be more than this. I thought it would be more exciting and loving and just more to it. And I just looked kind of in the future. I said, gosh, man, if this is it, I'm done. And I'll end it and put in another quarter and try again. I mean, that was my feeling about it. I came across this phrase about depression and sadness leading to depression, and I've heard that depression is us not feeling permission to be angry. And I've talked to other people about this in session, and it all seems to kind of point to the same thing: is that this depression, this helplessness and hopelessness, and that you don't have the right to be angry. You've been taught in your childhood, there's other people in the world that are worse off than you, and that's completely true. And some of the stuff that I've seen in session and heard from stories, I've got no room to say that I've got a shitty life, but it's all relative. You could have your cell phone break down and you could be pretty bad off. So it doesn't really matter if you had sexual abuse, physical abuse all your life, and then someone runs into your car, or if your cell phone craps out. It doesn't matter. It's not a game to see who's got the worst life situation. It's there. It's a real feeling. It's sadness, depression, and then sometimes leading into this thought of, I'm done. I don't really want to be here anymore. So here's what I found about somebody says about depression. I forget where I got it from, but depression is the feeling of being in a hole or powerlessness. And they say, go into the darkness of the hole, into the powerlessness. In darkness, we are able to acknowledge the light. This is why each new awakening is usually preceded by a period of a plunge into a tunnel of darkness. If we think that we already know what it is like beyond this tunnel, we deceive ourselves. Dare the darkness and find the light. So that part about that, this darkness, this depression, is this powerlessness, and they say, go into that powerlessness. And if someone would have said this to me when I was in this spot of depression and suicidal thoughts back about 20 years ago, if they would have told me, Daniel, go into the darkness, I would have just looked at them like they were nuts. But I think eventually I would have broke down, and if someone could have guided me into that and said, don't hide from the darkness, don't try and make your life some pretty thing when it's not a pretty thing right now. Go into the darkness and see where this powerlessness comes from. And when you just talk about it like this, it sounds, yeah, that makes sense. But how do I do that? And part of it is just, you got to have someone that can guide you through that. So if you're in that spot, please contact me. I can guide you through that. What brought this whole thing up for me to talk about this again, because it keeps on coming up. I keep on getting clients that are in this space in their life when they're contemplating suicide, or they've made several attempts, or they've been into a mental ward, a psych ward, and they've been checked out of that ward, and then now they're here in front of me. So there's a reason why I'm attracting people that have this going on, because I must be ready for it. And now it's been multiple people that I've been in front of, and it feels like what I'm providing to them is hope and empathy and compassion. And sometimes if we can provide that, that is enough, that someone can say, I know where you're at, or at least I can feel where you're at, and I've been in a very similar place, and yet here I am. So one of the things that seems to help a lot is realizing that what you're depressed about and what you're having suicidal thoughts about is what your mind has fed you, and it's fed you this story, and it's just gotten crazy, and it's gone on, and then right at the edge of that story, when it's in this most vulnerable state, more shit happens, more things happen to you, and it just kind of like just box you down with yet one other thing. But in that, there is a breaking down, and I know, trust me, I know that on the other side of what I'm saying is, I've already broke down. But what's missing is that you haven't had a real look at your life, and a real look at how you've been living your life, and where you're at right now, and what's in front of you right now. So now is the time to take a look at your life, and not all the shit that's been happening in your life, but how you've been living your life. Have you been living your life from love? How have you been loving yourself in all ways more than anything or anyone? Have you been living your life with the best, most healthy food, very little alcohol and sugar? Have you been being careful about the movies that you watch? All those kind of things. If you haven't been doing those things, then there's more work to be done. Then there's a different path to follow. And for me, it was like I kind of expected life to just at least be okay, and I could just live my life in a kind of a crappy way. I could just eat whatever I want to eat, whatever chili burgers and 3 margaritas, and do whatever I wanted, and life should be okay. But if you're not, if you're at this space of depression and suicide, then there is something there, it inside of you that there's something greater for you. But the way that you've been living your life, the way that you've been focused, isn't the way that your soul meant to be here. I want to make sure that this is really clear. Imagine that you are on the corner of a building, and you're looking down the street. I'm getting emotional about this. When you're looking down the street, and you're at the corner of a building, and all you can see is the street, and it looks like a crappy street to be on, and you can look down the end of the street and you see there's more crap, and you can't see anything beyond what's been happening. You look behind you, you see all the stuff that's been happening to you. And you look in front of you, and it's just more of the same thing. But if you could look around the corner, if you could peek your head around the corner of that building, you would see a different view. And that's what I couldn't see. From where I was, sharing a cubicle with the senior programmer as a manager of a software company, like, life should be good. I'm making 6 figures. I have a family. I live in Santa Barbara. How can life not be good? And then here it is. It just hits me. I'm depressed. I'm thinking about suicide because I couldn't see around the corner. I couldn't see that there was crazy journey in front of me. There was crazy letting go in front of me. There's a crazy surrender in front of me. And for me to get to that place of completely saying, screw it, I'm completely done. I completely give up. I completely surrender. That was a huge thing for me. So especially for someone that's capable and intelligent, you think, God, I should be able to make this work. And yet it's failing. And so you blame it on yourself and you go, this the world isn't for me. The world isn't working for me. But the problem is, or the truth is, you're not meant to live that kind of life. You're not to be on that. The end of that particular path has been at a close. In fact, it might have been at a close years ago, and you've been trying to make it work. But what's happening right now is possibly a breakdown. So you might think that you're in the darkness of the tomb, but you're actually in the darkness of the womb. You're having a rebirth, and it ain't any easy thing. This is one of the toughest things, and that's why a lot of people distract themselves with drugs and alcohol and other addictions and things, because it's too hard to go through this big transition that you're going through, that you might have gone through, that I went through. But thankfully, there's something in me that's a bit of a rebel. There's something inside of me that says, screw the normal way of being, that the way society wants me to be. I don't want to fall in line. I don't want to go like everybody else is going. I'm a boat rocker, a button pusher. I'm a systems breaker. I came here to kind of fall in line for a little bit, and then something to shift me into this new way. And I'll tell you, I'm so thankful for that hit, what people call the dark night of the soul, because that's what I needed to break me off that old path, because I would have kept on going on that path until I just completely destroyed myself. And that's what was happening. But something had to happen. It was going to be an accident, like a life-threatening accident, an illness, or divorce, or something, and to get me to shift on this other path. So that's what I needed. I needed something to really show up in a way that was like, you are not meant to be on this path forever. There are people that you need to be in front of. And in order for you to be in front of them, you got to do your work. I wish I could grab myself by the shirt at that time 20 years ago and say, Daniel, wake the F up. You got some work to do. I know you want it to all go the way it's going and have your surfing and your beach volleyball and your martinis and your all that stuff. But I mean, I was married to a multimillionaire and I still wasn't happy. I still wasn't meant to play out. I was married to a beautiful wife with 2 kids and it still wasn't meant to play out that way. I was meant to do the work that I'm doing now, but the old way needed to crumble down, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to go through, a terrible, um, hard divorce. Kids didn't want to be a part of my life. Quitting the 6-figure, salary job, going into mucking out horse stalls and installing chicken wire and pulling cable and do whatever I had to break out of that old mold into what I do now. But the way life is now, I could see why I was so depressed and suicidal, because looking at where I am now, it's a much different place. It's a completely different reality. So I want to give you some practical tools to think about to help you with this. Well, here's another quote here, and this one takes a little bit of kind of going into this meditative contemplation. So I'm going to say this a couple times. When the black image, which is the depression or the anxiety or the grief, when the black image appears on my screen, which is awareness, when the black image appears on my screen disappears. Okay. So you've got this image of depression and anxiety, and imagine that your whole screen gets flooded by this depression, anxiety, or grief. So your screen goes away. You wouldn't know that you were in depression or anxiety or grief if the knowing of it, the awareness, was not present. So let me say this a different way. Anytime that you're angry, sad, depressed, anxious, worried, stressed out, whatever the thing is, in fear, there's always awareness there. No matter what the emotion is, there's always awareness of the emotion. And that's the screen. So everything plays out on the screen of awareness. But the trick is to pull back and notice the screen. Notice that there's awareness there. So this is a great way right into spiritual awakening, into a complete shift in your life. We're wrapped up into the image on the screen. Oh, look at that image, and look at the details of that image. Look how black it is, and look what's happening in my life, and then this happened and that happened. And then, but then pull back and say, wow, there's awareness over there. Where does awareness come from? What is awareness? Awareness is who you are. Awareness is what you are. And you're never anything more or less than that. You're aware of the thoughts and the beliefs and the feelings of the anxiety and depression and all that stuff. But if you pull yourself back. So more on this knowing or the awareness is not buried under layers and layers of feeling. It continues to shine upon even the deepest depression. Know yourself as that knowing and not the depression. Like a TV screen, the glass shines to make the image visible. Instead of focusing on the image, pull back and focus on the glass, the shining light of awareness, which is always present. So let me say this again to make sure this is really clear. It continues to shine upon even the deepest depression. Know yourself as that knowing and not the depression. And I know even if someone were to say this to me before, there would be this rebuttal of saying, I know, but it's so hard. And I know, but I just get stuck in it and I can't get out of it. And then, there might be I just had this the other day. So I was on the other end of this and I was talking to this person about it and she kept coming up with rebuttals and kept coming up with resistance, which is completely normal when you're in it. But in that rebuttal and the resistance, that's where you should point at that rebuttal and then look at it and say, look what's happening right here. You're being guided and coaxed and loved into this place of knowing, into this place of truth. And yet there's resistance. What the hell is with that? What's with the resistance? When there's something that's really good for me and there's resistance, it's time to stop being the speaker of that resistance and stop standing up for that resistance and being the champion of that resistance and that rebuttal. Stop owning it. I know I'm getting kind of it's kind of frustrating because it needs to be really strong to say, you're really owning this as your identity. You're really owning this as something that you need to hold on to. It's not you holding on to it. It's your egoic mind holding on to it. So all the stuff that I'm talking about is all true and helpful and everything, but I know that, and yet there's still it's so hard. I don't know. It's just too hard. I don't know if I can do this work. Okay, so let's get to that. It is your body, and you can do whatever it is that you want with your body. I'm not here to tell you not to do something or to do something. Everybody has sovereignty in their body. But I just would like you to just invite you to consider that there would be a voice, or let's say you took this further and you took the suicide further and you actually acted on it. You know that there's this voice that said, if you just would have held on a little longer, and I would add on to that to say, first, find the beauty in the world. Before you make that decision, find the beauty in your world. I implore you to look for the beauty in the world, find it, and then from that place, make your decision. But in the place that you've been, you're not really qualified to make a decision on that big of a scale. If you could get to a place that you say, we all have this freedom. I feel so good about this life. I've seen it all. I've seen the darkness. I've seen the light. I've seen the beauty. I've seen all of it. I've seen the pain. I've seen the suffering. I've seen love. I've seen all of it. and I'm ready to go. Like we all have that inside of us, that freedom to do that. And I look forward to doing that myself. But I'm not going to go to a place again and say, all I've seen is shit in my life, and I'm going to leave here because I know that if I'm here, I came here from the light. I came here because I'm such a rebel, and because it takes a certain kind of powerful person to consider suicide. It is not a weakness. It's a powerful thing to consider that I came here to do something, and life just hasn't shown up, and I'm here for more. That's what, for me, that's what the thoughts of suicide were, is that I know there's more in me, and it just hasn't worked out. Well, if there's more in you and you're not satisfied with life, then give yourself the opportunity to live life differently, from conscious awareness, from love instead of fear, or the way that you've been living it. So that's one end of it. And I also can feel that there's other people that are listening to this, that you're considering suicide, or you're in deep depression because someone has left, because someone is not with you. Maybe your dog died, your aunt died, and your brother died, and your sister died, your mother died. You got death all around you. That this is the time, instead of trying to ask questions about, why is this happening to me? Why did this happen to them? They were so young, or why does cancer hit people, and all this kind of, instead of going into the mind again, now is the time to go fully into your heart. Completely feel this, completely feel what you need to feel. Because I know for myself, I've kept myself busy and distracted with different things because I didn't know how to go to that place of feeling. Well, I feel like there's a couple things going on when we get really hit by death in our life. One thing that it's doing is it's causing us to need to go right into that feeling, right into that loss, because you've had loss before in your life, probably in your childhood, and it wasn't adequately felt. And here it is, it's coming up again. That's why I think sometimes, like, when people have survivor's guilt and that kind of thing, and the whole tribe, the whole battalion was lost or something, and they're the only survivor, now's the time to go into that feeling. And the other thing that I know that's happening is that we are being shown the preciousness of life, and that is one of the reasons for death, is to give us a time frame, this time and space, so that we could look at life and say, okay, there's an end time here. It's an illusion, but it's very real in this life. And what that does for me is it causes me to really look at life and say, wow, life is really precious. There's so many times that I could have died, that maybe I should have died. And here I am still, I'm 58 years old now. So it's like, wow, it's just, I feel like life is gravy from here on out. If maybe I would have died. Maybe there's another reality where I did die. So it just really causes me to look at death in a really eye-opening way, so that I can fully live. So let me see if I can get to the practical tools here to give you something to hold on to. It is not ours to know the time of our death, but the time of our living, and that time is now. All right, I want to give you some practical tools here. Here we go. So these are tools for anxiety and depression, and for anything that it's got you sunk into a lower energy. Number one, exercise. Get out there and do something. Go for a walk, go for a hike. Number two, foods. Eat blood sugar stabilizers. No fried foods, no caffeine, sugar, alcohol, or at least cut down on that stuff. Seaweed, eat that. Whole grain blueberries, B12 and B6. Flaxseed, chamomile tea, nuts, pumpkin seeds. And what's really cool about pumpkin seeds and nuts and chips too, is it causes us to crunch down on the stuff, and we get salt. So we get a craving for salt when we need to express anger. And that's the other thing, is that express the anger in a safe way. And I know that for me, that when I was in depression, I had this hopelessness, and there wasn't any, I didn't think there was any safe way for me to scream my lungs out and you know punch something, or just get that anger out. But I needed to focus on what it was that I was angry about, what the feeling was underneath the anger, because the anger is just a cover emotion for something. So maybe it was grief and loss at the time that I was feeling it, but I needed to express that and get to that underlying emotion. Number three, meditation. That might be kind of hard, but at least give yourself some time just to be with yourself, not necessarily your thoughts. And if you do get lost in your thoughts, then do a guided meditation, do some kind of music. You might want to listen to something like Way of Mastery. It's a really good Christ consciousness recording that will really help. Number four, form close-knit human bonds. When we start to separate from people, we start to go into this aloneness and depression and sadness, and we lose the connection with people. But we need to make sure that we create those close-knit bonds with people that can help us, not the people that sit there and go, yeah, that person's an asshole, or that, this, yeah, that's really sucks. And people that can have compassion and empathy for you, but also have something to offer you that will help you to rise up. Number five, seek laughter and fun. I know that's a hard one to think about when you're in that state, but watch a movie, some goofy movie, some Jim Carrey or something, or was it Mr. Bean or whatever, some goofy thing that just makes you kind of smirk and finally, throw out a laugh or two. Better than not. Number six, get enough sleep. If we're charged inside, we get enough sleep, then we have more energy to do these other things. Number seven, release emotions somehow without judging. We all have emotions. We live in an emotional world. It's a completely normal thing to have emotions. What the problem is that a lot of society tells us that it's not safe or not healthy to have emotions. And if you have too many emotions, you should be in a ward somewhere. And I remember working with this guy that this doctor told him that they were going to do some procedure to his spine, to his spinal cord, so it would shut off his emotions. And the guy was like, looked like a regular guy, just he was maybe a sensitive empath like me. And the doctor was going to do this procedure on him. So it's very safe and very healthy to release those emotions. One way of doing that is breath work. So breathing exercises to go into what it is that causes you anxiety and worry, depression, go into those feelings, but in a conscious way, a conscious breathing state. So normally when we go into anxiety and depression, sometimes we we don't even breathe, or we breathe in this very shallow top breathing. I'm getting anxious. But what you can do in breath work is you can go into that anxious feeling, but in a very deep conscious breath. And I've seen this happen. Is you would think that breath work, this fast paced breathing is not for someone who's in anxiety or stress or worry or PTSD or something, but it's actually really good for the person to bring in that feeling and then bring in a different type of breathing for that. Number eight, listen to inspiring and relaxing music. Number nine, that was the breath work. Number 10, drink great water every day. There's something that happens when we drink high pH water. It starts to really nourish our systems. And when we don't drink enough water, our brain starts to, I would say that it kind of shrinks in its fullness, and we start to not be as clear as we could be mentally. Number 11, question your fearful thoughts. So all these thoughts are coming in and they're telling you all these ideas. What I've come to is that 99% of my thoughts are not true. So I'm really cautious of listening to my thoughts these days, because they take me down these roads that, it just doesn't feel good most of the time. Sometimes there's a small percentage of times when it brings me to a really good feeling, but most of the time it's some judgment about something. So just hold that, kind of couch the whole idea about thoughts with, okay, just be careful. It's probably not true. So don't go down that road. Number 12, be deliberate in what you focus on. So same type of thing. If you're going to spend energy on something, just be careful how much you dive into it. And I would add another one to this, and it's related to being the captain of your own ship again. You've kind of let your egoic mind control everything. And for me, there's a little bit of, I need to be in a little anger. I need to pull the reins back. I need to take the wheel back from this. I need to be the captain of my ship. I'm so freaking tired of this other part of me running the show, and it hasn't been good for me. So there's a little bit of just real determination. Like you got to be really stronger than your thoughts that have been controlling you all this time. And sometimes that takes some anger, not anger towards other people, but not anger towards yourself, but towards this concept that has been running the show and telling you what's what. And it hasn't been true. So um, that I think that's the last one that I want to leave with. That's probably good enough for now. If you want more than what I've talked about with this, please call me, contact me. Um, you can reach me at 805-729-0515 or danielposney@gmail.com or danielposney.com. Any way that you can. If you're even thinking about it or you want to talk about something, have a session with me. Um, I'm open to that, and I'm not going to judge you for anything. I mean, how could I if I've gone through similar stuff? So I love you. If you haven't heard this enough today, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. You're awesome. If you're still here, you're supposed to be here. So if you're still here, if you're still here, you're supposed to be here. There's something that you can't see from this position, but there's something that around the corner, and it's not something that your mind could put together. It's not something that your mind is going to tell you, oh, I get it now. It's logical. It's not that kind of way. Sometimes, at least for me and a lot of other people, there needed to be this whole I freaking give up. This is it. I completely surrender. And then from that place, start to like open up to a new path. It's kind of like when you surrender to that, when you've had a big breakdown and you surrender, the universe, God, creator goes, oh, gotcha. Now he's ready. So I hope you got some hope from this and some help and some support. And if you'd like more, please contact me. I love you. Thank you so much for listening to this, and bless you.